Next, though, we have our second presentation in this session, which is the Upper Merri Creek Integrated Water Management Partnership. It explores a really impressive project that's come to life in the northern suburbs of Melbourne. This is an area, integrated water management, every growth area council has this on their agenda. And the way that the two presenting councils approach this project is a great example of collaboration and establishing a sense of joint ownership of a shared resource. I'm really pleased to introduce Danelle, Ayres, Acting Team Leader of Sustainability Policy and Programs at the City of Whittlesea, and Angela Ganley, Senior Sustainable Environment Officer at Hume City Council, who will be taking us through this project today. I'll hand over to you two now.
Thanks, Bronwyn. Thanks for the warm welcome, and thanks to all the presenters so far. They've been really fascinating presentations. I'll just start my sharing my slide. So the Upper Merri Creek Integrated Water Management Plan has been a 3-year partnership collaboration between Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung Cultural Heritage Aboriginal Corporation, the Victorian Planning Authority, the cities of Whittlesea, Hume and Mitchell Shire Council, Yarra Valley Water, the Victorian State Government and Melbourne Water. These partnerships have been the backbone of the project. They were established based on those water planning services which operate within the catchment and to strengthen traditional owner self-determination. Before I launch into the presentation, I'd like to pause and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are all meeting today, which for myself and Angela is the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung. I would like to acknowledge the ancestors who have come before us, passing on their knowledge, skills and values over the last 60,000 years, and the elders past, present and emerging, as well as all Aboriginal people here today who have learned or are learning to use their voice to ensure that they are heard and so that we can continue to move forward together. So for some background and context, the Water for Victoria plan is the statewide plan for water. There have been a series of Water for Victoria Integrated Water Management Forums from which strategic direction statements were developed. The catchment scale integrated water management plans are being developed via these forums and include Yarra, Dandenong, Maribyrnong, Werribee, Western Port and the regional catchments. The Upper Merri Creek sub-catchment is the northern end of the Yarra catchment. It is located in the Northern Growth Corridor and extends from the Ring Road in the south, along the boundary of Whittlesea and Hume to Wallen in the north in the Mitchell Shire. It's highly impacted by growth and development, and what happens here significantly affects downstream, highlighting the importance of a collaborative, place-based and integrated approach. The Upper Merri Creek Integrated Water Management Plan is a 50-year plan which works to embed water service planning along the Upper Merri subcatchment. Ultimately, this plan will flow through to the precinct and lot scale. It will influence policy and planning schemes, precinct structure plans in development and review, integrated water management infrastructure plans, and planning requirements and permit conditions. Some of the challenges and opportunities. The Merri Creek subcatchment is made up of waterways that are highly valued, biodiverse and vulnerable, containing iconic species such as the platypus, the growling grass frog, golden sun moth and the matted flax lily. The biggest challenges include population growth, climate change and changes to land use. From the data available, which I don't think reflects the impact of COVID that was being spoken about earlier today, the catchment's population is set to grow from 196,000 in 2019 to 372,000 by 2031, increasing our need for drinking water and the wastewater generated. And with the desalination plant almost at capacity, Melbourne has low water security beyond 2028. By 2050, annual average temperatures will increase by 2 to 3 degrees, and our urbanised areas are hotter than our rural areas. There's no doubt we need to retain more water in the landscape to support tree growth, maintain green spaces, and create a cooler climate. We know that when we convert our natural places into urbanised areas, we increase stormwater. If we continue to use traditional development methods, once fully developed, we will need to find alternative uses for 21.9 gigalitres of excess stormwater in the catchment. That's the amount of stormwater which is beyond the creek's capacity to deal with. This will increase the flooding risk to our community and our neighbours further downstream. The impacts on the natural environment of the creek itself will result in water quality decrease and further stresses for many plants and animals, such as the growling grass frog. However, there's also many opportunities. For example, the treatment of wastewater can transform a waste stream into a valuable resource. Recycled water diverted to homes and businesses to replace potable water for flushing toilets or watering gardens, irrigating sports fields, or even horticultural enterprises, just to name a few. There are also opportunities to improve the resilience of our community. We can connect communities to each other and the land through celebration and stewardship activities, or opportunities for employment of traditional custodians in water planning on country. But to do any of these things successfully, it's critical that we take an integrated and engaged approach with our partners and community. No one party can achieve this in isolation. The vision, designed in consultation with community, is we all respect, care for, protect and enjoy our places and nature, supporting a connected and sustainable community. The 50-year action plan is a recipe for subcatchment planning and will step out the critical transition from the business as usual water management to a regenerative scenario, focusing on livability outcomes and climate readiness. The place-based approach encourages all water management agencies operating in the subcatchment to work together with community and traditional owners to address complex issues and produce mutually beneficial outcomes. This slide summarises some of the unique features of the project, such as collective leadership, long-term vision and commitment. The signed partnership agreement ensured equitable involvement, transparency and continual improvement from the outset. Indigenous partnership in water planning. Angela will talk about this in more detail a bit later, but this strives to ensure the protection and enhancement of culturally significant sites and that traditional practice is embedded into future water planning. Constructive organisational culture is about developing a shared perspective. This involved collating organisation-specific information and a workshop to synthesise information, develop agreed priorities and identify issues and opportunities. Public engagement, participation and transparency. An extensive stakeholder and community engagement plan was delivered, which Angela will talk through again later. And diverse fit-for-purpose water system services. The project has driven strategic organisational change. One example is the Whittlesea Community Farm Collective Partnership Project. The farm will showcase the use of recycled water and improve volunteering, education and employment opportunities, and grow and provide fresh food to the local food and relief network. The project was developed over a number of phases shown here. Right now, we are in the project output phase, developing the action plan, and the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung Cultural Heritage Aboriginal Corporation are finalising the cultural flows assessment, otherwise known as the Water Justice Document. The project started with the development of an issues paper, which was based on all the many studies that had been previously completed in this area, then community consultation to develop the vision and key principles. Once the integrated water management plan is finalised, the project will move into the implementation phase. In parallel, a monitoring framework, including success measures, indicators and metrics, is currently being developed by the Monash Sustainable Development Institute. Angela is now going to talk you through the really good stuff. So she's going to start with partnerships.
Thanks, Danelle. An outcome of the project has been the development of good working relationships between all the different partner agencies. So as previously mentioned, we developed a signed partnership statement with the Wurundjeri. We didn't develop similar partnership agreements between the other agencies because we'd all worked together before in various capacities, such as through the development of precinct structure plans. But we did identify the key integrated water management issues that each agency needed to resolve within the different partnership groups. So for example, the 3 councils needed to develop a consistent approach across the catchment, particularly for streetscape integrated water management and water sensitive urban design. The water authorities, so Yarra Valley Water and Melbourne Water, each have alternative water targets that could be conflicting. Yarra Valley Water has declared the Upper Merri Creek catchment a mandatory recycled water area for new subdivisions, while Melbourne Water has ambitious stormwater harvesting and infiltration targets as part of its healthy waterways strategy for the growth areas. So all the partners need to understand which regional integrated water management processes are supported, as the supply of alternative water in this area is far greater than the demand for non-potable water. The VPA also need to incorporate integrated water management into their regional planning processes and help us to use the planning scheme to support the desired outcomes from the project. As the traditional owners of the Birrarung and its surrounding country, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung First Peoples bring their unique knowledge, connections and understandings of the Merri Creek and the wider Yarra catchment into the Upper Merri Creek Integrated Water Management Plan. By doing this, they enhance the plan's integrity. This slide shows the goals for the partnership between the Wurundjeri and the other partners. These goals derive from key issues that were identified by the Wurundjeri. The project partners acknowledged the following key issues needed to be addressed to improve First Peoples' water rights and their ability to genuinely engage and participate in water planning and management processes. So one issue is that First Peoples' desire for water rights and interests need to be further acknowledged and protected by law. That the existing water planning and management regimes and institutions need to increase First Peoples' participation, influence, self-determination and control. First Peoples' interests in water ownership, management, use and development do not always map easily onto existing Western legal, cultural, scientific, environmental and economic frameworks. And we need to invest for the long term to improve First Peoples' water rights and involvement in water management. The development of a cultural flows assessment is ongoing, but the work to date has informed the draft action plan, with the key areas being water rights, economic development, the use of Woiwurrung language in naming places, and development of Wurundjeri Wurundjeri guidelines, including plant species selection. The cultural flows assessment reinforces principles of self-determination for traditional custodians on country. From the issues paper that Danelle mentioned, there were 3 scenarios developed for further community consultation: a status quo or business as usual scenario, a sustainability scenario with different options for the provision of services and fit for purpose use of all water resources, and lastly, a regenerative scenario that had a bolder approach to achieve significant social, cultural, environmental and economic outcomes. So the community could select elements from each of these 3 scenarios, and by doing this, they would help us to understand their preferences. A critical outcome of the community engagement were the overarching principles which were developed, which were in general, were that the community thought that business as usual was not okay and they wanted to do things differently. And do this by using stormwater and recycled water effectively with traditional and natural methods preferred over mechanical treatment. And lastly, the community wanted to create shared ownership of solutions and build community involvement in water planning and management. Separately to this community workshop, there was also a stakeholder symposium held with developers and other industry partners to gauge their willingness to do things differently. The key outcome from this was that developers wanted certainty and they want to know which IWM options the agencies would like to pursue. So in December 2020, the regional partnership executive representatives agreed upon the key aspirations, accepting that more detailed actions will be included in the plan. Key aspirations are listed here in the slide, and I'll just give some examples of how these aspirations might be achieved and what the intent is here. So the first one, development of holistic servicing to incorporate integrated planning. So it's really about streamlining processes and approaches. With the reduction of stormwater volumes and flows, that could be on many scales, so looking at both lot scale and regional scale and in between. With community engagement, one example of an initiative we'll look at is the potential to develop partnerships with community groups to perhaps maintain assets. With Wurundjeri-Woiwurrung ownership over water, that's really through licensed supply agreements to support those outcomes. With the Wurundjeri-Woiwurrung programs, that could be naming of public places, cultural education, storytelling and art, through to employing Wurundjeri expertise to design and manage water infrastructure. When looking at the connection between community and environment, that's really about trying to get the community to influence design and delivery methods more than they already do. With innovation and technology, it's about being adaptive to incorporate future innovations. The first application of the plan will be to the Cloverton Town Centre development, which is in Calcallo, which is in the outer northern growth area of Melbourne. So this is happening in parallel to the completion of the overall Upper Merri Creek RWM plan due to development timing. So the town centre extends into both the Hume and Whittlesea local government areas. The precinct structure plan for the area allows the agencies to request a developer IWM plan that aligns with the regional IWM plan. So in this case, the Upper Merri Creek IWM plan. So the work we've done to date is informing the different integrated water management and WSID measures that the partners would like to see implemented in the town centre, and also which ones are not supported. So this guide will inform the eventual review of the developer IWM plan for the Cloverton Town Centre, particularly for councils to determine and align on streetscape water sensitive urban design. The other task is to develop a protocol for the receipt, referral, review and endorsement of the developer IWM plans so that the plans can be approved in a streamlined manner with certainty and consistency for the developer using the agreed IWM measures so we don't contradict each other and confuse the developer. And this work is ongoing. That brings us to the end of the presentation. I'd like to thank you all for listening. I'm sitting on the Q&A panel. I look forward to discussing the Upper Merri Creek IWM plan with you further then. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That was just really interesting and innovative, and I think it holds a lot of potential for really changing the way councils and stakeholders approach some of these issues. So thank you both, Danelle and Angela.